Here.
Alan Barnett.
Here.
Babs DeLay. Here. Emily Kearns.
Here.
John Uwanowski.
Here.
And we have 5 present and a quorum.
Great. With the quorum, we're going to keep on moving. Just to review the public hearing procedure really quick, everyone during the public hearing, we have one tonight, has a chance to speak. You have 2 minutes. Please just state your name for the record when you start to speak and speak about the matter at hand. Approval of the minutes from previous meeting, which was our June meeting. I was not here, but I will entertain a motion.
I would motion that we accept the minutes from last month's meeting.
Great. Motion from Emily.
Okay.
Seconded by Babs. So let's do a roll call vote. Babs?
Aye.
Adrian?
I abstain.
Emily?
Aye.
Alan?
Aye.
And I abstain as well. The minutes are approved unanimously. Report of the chair. I have nothing to report tonight. And report of the director. Does the planning staff have anything to report?
Yes, I just wanted to say that on July 8th, 2025, the Salt Lake City Council approved the commercial and mixed-use zoning consolidation. So that effort, for those of you that aren't aware, consolidated 27 commercial, form-based, and mixed-use zoning districts into 6 new commercial mixed-use districts. The new mixed-use districts resemble the former zones, but they feature adjustments to setbacks, building heights, lot coverages, permitted land use, and other related provisions. These changes will go into effect on October 8th, 2025. There was a slight delay, grace period before that ordinance will go into effect. Additionally, the council initiated a legislative intent for staff to consider impacts of larger buildings next to smaller contributing structures. We do not have a timeline for starting that process.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Next, we move to general public comments, which is for anyone in the public who wishes to speak to matters that are not included on our agenda tonight. I don't see any cards for tonight, so is there anyone wishing to speak on general matters? Hearing none, we will move on to our first public hearing, local landmark site designation of Sampson and Altadena Apartments at approximately 276 East, 300 South, and 310 South, 300 East. Case number PLN HLC 2025-0057. And we have Noah here to present.
Thank you, Chair Uwanowski. It's me again, Noah Elmore. This evening we have a request by the Sampson Altadena Condominiums Homeowner Association to designate the Sampson and Altadena Apartments as a local landmark site. Staff is recommending the Historic Landmark Commission forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council. The subject site is located at the southwest corner of the intersection of 300 South and 300 East. Sampson Apartments is to the north at 276 East, 300 South, while Altadena Apartments is to the south at 310 South, 300 East. The period of significance of the buildings is 1906 to 1945. This roughly corresponds from the date of construction to the year the namesake Sampson family sold the property. The Brick, Sampson, and Altadena apartments are early examples of apartment construction of the period, which saw typical apartment block configuration as a 3-story walk-up with 2 units on each floor flanking a central staircase. Designed by Auguste Rudin, the apartment blocks represent high-style examples of neoclassical architecture. The buildings are just 2 of 25 extant examples of walk-up apartments built between 1903 and 1915, with twin apartment buildings being rare in general. Rudin's buildings have subsequently both been listed on the National Register since 2009. Some particularly noteworthy elements include the deep porches, the neoclassical architectural ornamentation with the brick and stone masonry of the buildings, which has been remarkably well preserved, especially when compared to similar extant apartment buildings from the same period. The standards for the designation of a local landmark site are evaluated based on historic significance, historic integrity, eligibility on the National Register, and established planning practices. As discussed in the staff report, staff evaluated each criterion against the proposed designation. It is in staff's opinion that the proposed designation meets each standard. With that in mind, staff is recommending the Historic Landmark Commission forward a recommendation to approve to City Council.
Thank you, Noah. Does the applicant have a presentation tonight, or is that?
They do.
Okay, great. Any questions for Noah before we move into that? Okay, excellent. Yeah, feel free to come up and make sure you speak into the mic. That's sometimes a problem.
Okay. So good afternoon. My name is Lauren.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. I'm just going to adjust your volume a little bit.
Okay. So my name is Lauren Fentanella. I'm a Salt Lake City resident and a proud homeowner of Sampson at the Sampson Altadena condominiums. And I'm here with my HOA president, Annie Ruth Isaacson. I'm the vice president of our HOA, and we just want to give a brief presentation on our application for the landmark site designation. So our agenda is pretty brief. We hope to go over the significance of our buildings, both to the community, the historical nature, and the architecture. Noah did steal some of my thunder, but we'll cover some of those things again. And then Annie will cover the preservation, what our HOA has done both past and present to preserve the historical nature of our buildings. And then we have 2 minutes for questions. So as Noah kind of mentioned, our buildings are located on 300 South and 300 East. Sampson faces the Capitol, and Altadena faces the mountain range. They're sister cities, 3.5 story tall. They are neoclassical revival style. The balconies are quite beautiful with the Tuscan columns. As you can see, we have rock-faced sandstone. The red brick is laid in a diamond pattern, and these buildings have been exceptionally well preserved, especially when compared with other apartment buildings in that period. Auguste Rudin is believed to the bricklayer and builder of our buildings. He's a Swedish immigrant who came to the United States in 1882. He was listed as a bricklayer in Salt Lake City directories into the late 1890s, and then he was listed as a general contractor. Auguste and Anna, his wife, sold the property to Octavius Sampson in 1906, and it was Octavius Sampson who obtained the permits to build on the property. He did not list the architect or builder at that time, but because of Rudin's interest in the property as well as his employment during that time, it is believed he's the builder. In terms of person of interest, as I mentioned, Octavius and his wife Eunice Sampson were the original owners. They were respected, longtime known members of the community, and they were the managers of our building. They were also members of the First Church of Christ Scientists in Salt Lake City. This building and church is still present. It's just east of us on 300 South. The building was also listed on the National Registry of Historical Places, and it was believed the Sampsons built the apartment, Sampson and Altadena, for members of the church congregation. And another fun historical fact is Altadena is their daughter, so the building was named after their. And then finally, at this time when the buildings were made, it reflects a time in Salt Lake City's history where there was a growth in urbanization, there was an immigrant population influx of young people moving from rural parts of Utah to the capital city in search of employment. And these buildings are one of the few remaining pre-World War urban blocks in their original form. And now I'm going to pass it to Annie.
Hi. Can you hear me? Okay. So in 1906, Octavius Sampson lovingly had these buildings built, and till 1945, he managed them like the landlord. And I believe he died in 1945, and that's why the family sold the buildings. So for the next 60 years, they didn't have Sampson's love. They had different people's love, but it wasn't the same. It wasn't their child. And as the building, as all buildings do, deteriorate over time, we know some modifications were made. These buildings had open-air elevators in the back, and apparently sometime in the post-World War II years, the elevators didn't do well and they took them out. And then the stair that used to wrap around the elevator got enclosed in the first-floor apartments in both buildings. And they just had a staircase coming out the back instead of an elevator. They also extended the length of the kitchens that used to be on the outside. They added about 4 feet to the back of each unit at that time, you know, somewhere in those 60 years. They painted the brick interior stairs that used to be more open to the sky. The exterior sandstone bases were painted, and 2 exterior walls on both buildings, black film was added to them, brown film, which over the years was deteriorating and damaging the bricks. So in 2006, 100 years after it was built, they were sold as condominiums. So now there are 12 full-size units, first, second, and third floor, and then there are 5 smaller units, 1 in Altadena's basement and 4 in Sampson's basement. In 2007, the HOA was formed, that the buildings were listed on the registry 2009, 2010. In 2015, for the first time, they initiated a reserve study. The early days of the HOA, people bought the units very inexpensively, and I think they intended to keep the cost low, and they really didn't repair things or fix things. In 2016, the CC&Rs were revised and approved, and things went more in the direction of how do we protect the long term of the building. Okay, so now I'm going to talk to you a little about, because in the last 8 years, the 17 owners, 12 shares, full share, 5 half shares, have really mortgaged themselves very hard to bring back these buildings. We did a fund study in 2017, which was like $36,000 for structural, masonry, and architectural reviews. Plumbing stacks, some that had lead in them, started to fail. So those were like $22,000 in 2018. The buildings only had 1 set of electrical panels for both buildings, and we separated them. So that was done in 2018. In 2019, we updated the reserve study. We had some boiler repairs. Then in 2020, on March 18th, we had the big earthquake. And that gave us some, push, some of us, to get other people in the HOA to say, hey, we really need to evaluate the structure of these buildings. And we brought in a structural engineer and abstract masonry and evaluated them. And we have put our power underground because you can't do masonry and shut the power off every day. We've put in over $500,000 into taking out the brown stain, fixing the cracks. We put in new limestone on the sills, all the stuff we did in collaboration with the state. And we had some damage to one of the balconies, and that's in the city right now. We have a historic structural engineer that did the drawings for that. So we're in it to stay long-term, and we want to get the protection of being on the local registry and the acknowledgement from the city because we're really proud of our buildings. So with that, I'm going to go back to Lauren if you have questions.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant?
Yes, I have a few. Let's see, you got historic approval back in what, 2006 or 9 or something?
The 10 for this national,
For the national.
10.
And so what was your motivation to get a local one? I know the answer to this, but I want it on record.
Okay, so we've been going back and forth with planning for like 2.5 years because, sandstone's foundations were never in 1906 thought to be next to a large steel structure and have the vibratory pilings and stuff going next door. And of course, that stuff's starting to happen now. And when that stuff happens, it could crack your foundations. And if it cracks your foundations, your building can sink. So we're really trying to do this because by being a local landmark, we will get the new protections that were approved 2 days ago with the step-aways from the height from a roof line. And that's really for our building survival. So that's why we're doing it.
Excellent. And I was just trying to do the math. Though, I'm guessing you had assessments for, that looks like about $750,000.
It's $750,000 in 8 years from people that are lower and middle class. It's
Exactly.
not easy.
So it's I'm going to say $750,000 divided by 17 owners?
Well, if you divide it by 14 and a half, that goes by what a full share, you'll get what a
Well,
full
let's just
share.
say, so that was like a $50,000 per owner. And has everyone done that?
Well, there was actually 50,000. There were a couple other little ones in there, but yeah, we actually had to aggressively pursue that because we had a contract with masonry that we had to get it done in a certain amount of time.
Great. The one thing I know about the two buildings is there is no parking. You have
Right.
to rent parking around there. And have you been hearing rumors that what's around you, those parking lots may disappear, even though we have 30 parking places downtown?
What's where we park, you mean? Well, we've been paying them so we could get our garbage picked up through the parking lot.
Right.
And because that's not a forever thing, and our driveway was taken away before they became condos, we just work with the engineering department so we could at least get a spot back so that garbage can get picked up from the street.
Good. Great. Thank you. That's all I have.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, great. Thank you so much. You can
Thank
sit
you.
back down.
Oh, we have a model here of what we call the Neighborhood Care Committee, which there's
Anne, I need you to speak into a microphone so that we can have you on record what you're saying. Thank you.
Should she bring it over?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. Ben, you want to bring the other little one? So this kind of, you see like right back there is kind of part of the building we're sitting in right now. The city council is like on the edge there. It's kind of cut like a a small portion of it, and you can see where the library is. And Ben, could you point to where our buildings are on the little version? So that's where our buildings are. And that's a little blow up of our buildings on the corner. And we basically started building these models because, we kept going to the planning department because we were concerned about, how the city develops around us, around Justin's building, Ben's building, and our neighbors. And so it kind of evolved into that. The one of our buildings I just cut out today from a bigger model, but yeah, we're very passionate about the future of the city.
Very cool.
Very nice.
Right.
Very nice. Excellent presentation.
Thank you.
With that, we're going to open the public hearing. I have 3 comment cards here, starting with Cindy Cromer. You have 2 minutes to speak into the mic. Please state your name when you start, and ready to go.
Cindy Cromer. Oops, is it on? 2 minutes for almost 50 years of history. So this building was owned by my future father-in-law, and my boyfriend lived on the 2nd floor on the east side of this Sampson. Oh. So my relationship to these buildings goes way back to the mid-'70s when I was 20-something, and I was in a relationship with a person who was the son of the owner of both buildings, and my significant other, who I eventually married, lived on the 2nd floor of the Sampson. I was in and out of this building very often while I was in graduate school. Eventually, my father-in-law sold the buildings on a contract, and I have been following them ever since. Through the failed contract, through my former father-in-law getting the buildings back, through Bill Schwab, member of the planning staff's nomination of 50 historic apartment buildings to the National Register, as I watched people opt out, including the then owners of these buildings. They opted out of a National Register nomination 20 years before they finally were placed on the register. So long history, the fire at the Avalon, the condominium process when on my screen up popped a condo in the basement of the Sampson Altadena. I'm looking at the screen going, oh my goodness. To currently, the nomination to the city register, and as part of reading the materials, I realized that there was this connection to the Church of Christ the Scientist. Well, that's just extraordinary, and the long ownership and occupancy by the Sampson family speaks to why these buildings have survived. I think the other contributory factor is that they were condominiumized at a time when there were lots of condominiums being formed in Salt Lake, and that was further protection. So what I'm really asking you to do is create the 3rd leg of the stool, the city register designation, which will secure the future of these buildings that have had it's been a roller coaster to follow them for 50 years. Thanks.
Thank you, Cindy. Next, we have a card from Ben Engel. 2 minutes.
Hello, I'm Ben Engel. I live at the Hollywood condominiums. I know Babs is familiar with it. Another National Historic structure. And I think we should definitely approve this for the landmark, on the Landmark Commission to the City Council. I'm hoping that we'll start seeing some more of this. I hope that everybody not only approves this, but celebrates the fact that we have people that are taking pride in the historic structures that we have in our city. I think a big thing for why this is necessary for the local landmark as opposed to the National Historic Registry is because our city has taken a stance where the national designation does not offer the same kinds of protections that it did traditionally. Our new zoning merger now takes into consideration only those historic properties that are on the landmark designation and not our national designation. So I'd hope that this encourages many other proud owners of our historic properties to take the same initiative that we have here at the Sampson Altadena. It's to be commended and celebrated. Thanks.
Did you do that with the Hollywood?
No, we hope to now. Now that we kind of have a little bit of a blueprint, and I think the process of a lot of these things is very confusing to most people, and they don't understand it. So, that's where it's a little bit of a precedent that's being set here, because as far as I understand, we haven't had any local landmark designations for quite a while. And also, I would hope that we can set some precedent to kind of stop some of the blight that we have, because a lot of these historic properties, like contributing structures to historic areas, are just neglected until finally they get permission to destroy the properties. It seems as though we've encouraged developers to neglect property and to instill blight in our city, and we want to stop that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have a card from Justin Connie.
Hello, my name is Justin Connie. I'm the CCNC chair, and we did submit a formal comment to NOAA. But today I speak just as a private citizen. I've lived in Salt Lake City for 2 years, and I remember when I was looking at condos downtown, I looked at the Metro, and then I ended up buying property at the club, which is not historic. But it was the element of walking down 2nd South, Third South, in that the balance between historical properties that really echoed some of the urbanism that I was looking for. As we grow, we don't want to lose what we have. And I think that the main narrative tonight has been about stewardship. And I think it's really important to highlight that when a condo building decides to go up and endorse the idea of going up for local, they have to have every single condo owner sign off on that. And as we know, that can be a financial obligation, but that's also an endorsement about how much they care about the property, because not everyone views properties the same way. Sometimes they buy property to rent it out for Airbnb and other purposes. And when you actually invest in a historical property, there's a lot of. And so I just want to, congratulate this, organization for really taking that next step and saying, we really need about our building and about keeping it in that stage where it really reflects those historical characteristics. And so, in concluding, I'd like just to say that, I strongly support this.
Thank you, Justin. Any other members of the public wish to speak? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. We did have, before I do that, I should say we had, I think, 4 emails that were in support, including one from Central City Neighborhood Council. So with that, I'll close the public hearing. And I'll open the executive session.
So I think I've heard it 3 times of how difficult this process is. I love that Hollywood might consider this. Is it really that difficult? Are we learning something from this? Or is it just people don't know how to do this and we need to reach out a little better and help them do this? Because this is why we're here. We believe in preservation. And I personally love what's going on here, but I don't want to hear that it's difficult. So can you, Amy, help me here?
I think in terms of the landmark site designation, we haven't heard in the past that process is difficult because it's just typically a one-owner property. We have heard the process is difficult with a local historic district. That also involves multiple owners. That process has largely been given to us by the state legislature that controls that process for historic designation. We have different ways that buildings can be proposed for designation. One of those includes property owners. There's also city council or the mayor can also initiate petitions. I think it could be particularly difficult if there is not a survey that has already been done for the property, or if the property is not already on the National Register. But otherwise, staff is always willing to meet with applicants about the process and walk them through the process.
I guess it begs the question in my mind is like, you know, how many people even know that this is an option? That the property that they value and that they have put a lot of resources into preserving and that they want to maintain can be given some protection by the city. I'm guessing that there are very few people who would even know that that would be a possibility. So I wonder, you know, I don't know if there's a way to get that information out there more for property owners or not, but.
This alone, this application would make a great PR story, I think, for that
Absolutely.
particular topic, whether the city would take that on or you all would take that on. I think it's a fascinating process that you're right, not a lot of people know about. It's not really that difficult because we have a huge staff here that's so very helpful. And I think more need to, those blocks around there, the block, is it third by Gourmandie and the club, which those buildings were also during the same era, and they are historically fabulous, but they are boarded up or burned out or God knows what horrible. You know, we have a lot of that going on with these kind of buildings, so it's refreshing to see people wanting to preserve, but these people are living in these, and some of those are quite vacant as well. So I would love to see, I mean, I personally might take this on for some kind of social media or something, or information campaign, just because it's so damn important. And that's why we're here as volunteers trying to save all of this. So I'm a huge fan of this. Oh, let's get on with it. Yeah.
I also just want to comment that, I mean, this almost seems like it goes without saying, but I sort of like want to put it on the record. It just so impresses me. This is the neighborhood you want to live in. These are the kind of neighbors you want to have, people who take pride in their property, who invest in it, and then want to protect that. And it's just like, well, this is what you want. This is what you want to live next door to. And so I really commend the HOA for taking on the work and the expense of maintaining the building. It's a beautiful, beautiful building. And there are other buildings as beautiful of this time period, but so many of them are in such poor condition because they haven't been maintained. And obviously it takes a lot of resources to maintain that, but it makes it a jewel of a building for the whole community and for the people who live there. And so that kind of commitment, because it isn't just a commitment to your own property, it's a commitment to the whole city. And so, and that's what I love to see.
Well, and it's even more impressive that it's kind of like you're talking about these mostly middle class people preserving the building. I mean, we've seen quite a bit of historic preservation in other areas of the city that are more affluent, but it's just so cool to see kind of a HOA banding together and getting stuff done and getting it listed and protected. And hopefully with some of the zoning consolidation and other incentives that the city has now for historic properties, there will be more of this to come.
When's the last time we saw something like this?
I think you all reviewed not something like this, but we have seen landmark sites. I think the last one was the Nettie Gregory Center. Cafe Molise went through for a landmark site. The 29th Ward went through. It's been probably predates most of this commission, I think. But we do see landmark site designations. It's definitely not as common as some of the local historic district designations we see. I don't think we've seen a multifamily building like this come in for a landmark site designation in my time here.
Or mine, I agree. Let's have more of it. Good.
Any motions that anyone would like to make?
I can make a motion. Based on the information presented in discussion, I move that the commission forward a recommendation to approve the designation request to the City Council.
I second that motion.
Motion by Adrian and seconded by Emily. Babs. Aye. Adrian.
Aye.
Emily,
Aye.
Alan,
Aye.
and I am an aye as well. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you all.
Good job.
With that, that was our only agenda item tonight, so meeting adjourned.
On the shoulder and walk facing traffic. Do not get out of your vehicle when on the interstate. Call 911 and ask for the non-emergency line for vehicle assistance. Drivers, watch for pedestrians at all times, especially